My name is Eric DeVitro. I'm a pastor in Manchester, New Hampshire, and there's a debate going on in the media on ABC News tonight about the topic of Satan and the nature of evil. Ought to be really interesting because among the people that are on there, Deepak Chopra is on there, and Mark Driscoll from Mars Hill Church in Seattle. And I just watched a preview of it, just real briefly looked at it, and I think one of the main issues that people run into with the nature of Satan and the nature of evil in the world is that we don't like to believe that evil exists. We like to believe that human beings are good. We like to believe that given an opportunity, human beings will do the right things. And so we say, well, if human beings given the option, they're going to do the right thing, and we're inherently good, then it makes sense that creation is inherently good, and therefore the idea of an inherently evil being or creature, or creation, or object, or power, or whatever you want to call it, that it's no longer necessary. And so we're able to argue ourselves out of the existence of the evil one. First of all, let me just lay a couple of things out. There's no doubt when you read the scriptures, the Gospels, that Jesus believed in Satan. He believed he existed. He believed that he was the Diabolos, the aspersion caster, the accuser. He believed that he was spiritual. He believed that he could empower human beings. We see that in the Gospels all the time, where there's a moment where he looks at the scribes and the Pharisees who are accusing him. He calls them, he says, "You are of your father, the devil." And there's another moment with Judas, who betrayed him, where the gospel writers say that Satan entered into him. So that idea, Jesus definitely believed in it. So if I'm going to base my beliefs and my thoughts and my ideas on what Jesus had to say, there's no doubt that Jesus believed in Satan. Now, but at the same time, what Jesus believed in as Satan, as the devil, as that great demon, as the John, the writer of the Apocalypse, calls him that great dragon, was not this medieval idea of a guy with hooves and horns and a pitchfork running around hell torturing people. That was invented by the medieval church to guilt trip people and to make hell in competition with heaven, and to get people to basically give money to the church in order to, what they did with the money was not what Scripture says to do with the money, but rather they built these massive basilicas and they sponsored wars and all kinds of stuff, and that's so that idea of Satan, that is a myth. The horns, the hooves, the whole deal, that is a myth. That's a creation of a pseudo-Christian ruling class that wanted an embodiment of evil. They wanted a false Satan. They wanted a false God that they could compare to the God that they were walking around crediting for their glory and their honor, and the Crusades and all kinds of stuff. And that kind of stuff, it's so hard to get that out of our culture and our thinking about things like Satan, because that's totally unsubstantiated. The scriptures don't have anything to say about it in that way. In fact, the scriptures say that Satan is actually transformed into an angel of light. So he has, if we could define an appearance to a spiritual being, he has the appearance of beauty. He has the appearance of everything that is good. He doesn't look like the medieval perception of Satan, and that's a huge thing that we have to talk about, we have to deal with, and we have to understand that we are not talking about a Satan that the medieval church might deal with. We're talking about a biblical Satan. Now, there are some things in Scripture that are very clear about Satan, and one of the things is that he is a power. What does that mean? A power, a substantial being. It means that he has certain authority and certain power and certain abilities that we do not have. And you've got to grasp that. He has powers that we do not have. He's not God, and he's not equal to God, but he is capable of doing things. He is capable of having power over us. There's a lot that we could get into that, but let me just provide you with this simple syllogism, with all the scriptures put aside. If there is something good that is bigger than us, i.e. God, and you can define that God however you want to. I personally define it according to Scripture because I believe Scripture is the standard of authority for the Christians. And in our church, we talk about all the time that a Christian is a person who loves Jesus, hates sin, and trusts the Bible. So what the Bible has to say about God and what the Bible has to say about Satan, those are authority to me. But let's just say, if there is a divine power that is good, not necessarily nice, because I think the God of the Bible is not necessarily nice all the time. He's not a warm, fuzzy creature. He's not like a teddy bear up in heaven. He's not a cherubic thing. He is sometimes violent. He is. He requires a certain amount of violence in his grace, and we're talking about that at our church with the Easter season coming up and crucifixion and all that stuff. But he is good. And if he is good, then it makes sense. It just makes logical sense that if there is a personification of good, there must also be a personification of evil. Now, this is totally from a Judeo-Christian point of view. Chakra, who comes from a totally different way of thinking, Eastern religions, they view evil totally different. And I'm not saying that their view doesn't have some value and some credit to it. Because I think we as Christians, we have a tendency to exalt the personification of spiritual beings rather than understand that spirit, by definition, includes personality, but it is not bound to personality. But Satan, if there is a personification of good, God, then there is also a personification of evil, Satan. It's just a logical thing. Now, if you don't believe in God or you don't believe in a personal God, then arguing for a Satan, a personal evil, that it's hard to do. And I can't try to persuade you of that. I can't try to convince you of that. And one thing that Satan would love for us to do is expend all kinds of energy trying to get you to think in my thought patterns so you will accept what I have to say. But in the Judeo-Christian perspective of things, in the European perspective of things, that as much as we hated as much as many people hated, our culture has been defined by that broad, and I use the term very broad, Christian ethos that includes a personification of good and a personification of evil. But in that personification of good, there are some things that we don't like. There are some not nice things. And in that personification of evil, there are some good and nice things. I mean, sin feels good. What Satan wants you to do feels good. And to use an ultimate illustration of that, right? It felt good to the German people during World War II to be dominating Europe and to have the world powers looking to them to make all their decisions. It felt good, but at its heart it was evil. So evil has a certain amount of feeling good, a certain amount of niceness into it. And I think that's where the confusion happens. We try to create a oneness where there is either all good and all nice and all bad, or all nice and all mean. And the reality is sometimes the way of good appears to us to be mean, and sometimes the way of evil appears to us to be good. And so the decisions that we have to make, they're very difficult and they're complex. And whether the scriptural understanding of God and Satan really is all there is to it, or not. The reality is it was a way that God sets up for us an understanding of the difference of the two. And it is a little more Eastern than most Western people are willing to admit. This idea of good having some not so nice things in it, and evil having some good things, good in quotation marks, good things